Hello and welcome to another week of chess openings with me, Zach Sagowski, as we go through all the main chess openings to help you understand the game of chess better and help you improve your ELO score as you're starting out in the game of chess. This week, we're going over the Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit is a very popular opening for white, and it has a lot of theory behind it. So there are many different situations that you can get into with the Queen's Gambit. There are times when the black player accepts the gambit, when the black player declines by moving their pawn to e6, when they decline the gambit but use the Semi-Slav defense, and then there is the Albin Countergambit. We're going to go over each of those today, and we're going to start with the Queen's Gambit accepted. So it starts off with d4 to d5. White then goes to c4. This is how the Queen's Gambit is always set up. Now, in the Queen's Gambit accepted, black takes our c4 pawn here, setting us up for an advantageous position. The next thing we do is we go knight to f3. They will come out with knight to f6. We open up with pawn to e3, attacking this pawn. They will come out here trying to open up the bishop file. We can then take the pawn. There is nothing that black can do to really save that pawn. Everything that they can do will end up resulting in that pawn being lost. So just keep playing as I show you here, and it will set you up in a good advantageous position moving forward. Black then will want to strike out here to take this pawn. We just castle, and as they try to open these things up, it's good to fianchetto both the queen and the bishop here, creating a strong diagonal. The things you have to worry about when you are going through all of this is to make sure that when they do accept the gambit, kick the knight out here to f3. They should match with their own knight to f3. You then open up the pawn to e3, opening up this bishop to take the pawn. From there, you're going to have a much better position when the Queen's Gambit accepted. You'll be up a piece and controlling the center. The big thing that you also want to note is in the Queen's Gambit, this pawn stops this bishop, and so it is very advantageous for you to just keep this pawn here the whole time, because having this bishop blocked in gives you another advantage that will help you win the games moving forward. So let's say they don't accept the gambit. We still go d4, they go d5, and we go c4. Always, this is how it always opens. This is the most common variation you will find when a pawn goes to c6 here. We will then kick out our knight either to b3 or to f3. This is the orthodox variation where you do kick the knight to c3. They'll kick the knight out there to f6. We pin the knight to the queen with moving the bishop to g5. They'll protect their knight in case we do take with the knight to d7. We then open up the bishop file, protecting this pawn if they do decide to take, and they open up with the bishop themselves. This is where most Queen's Gambit games are going to be. You just have to make sure, the big one being getting this bishop out here before you close the line. In a couple of my games, I did forget to bring my bishop out, trapping my bishop in, and it was not a good time for me. I lost a lot of games that way. So next up is actually the most common that you'll come up against when it comes to skilled players. You'll be playing the Semi-Slav defense. So it opens up with your normal Queen's Gambit, but instead of a knight or an e6 pawn, they go with the c6 pawn here, opening up and defending this if we were to take that pawn. We open up with the knight to g4, defending this pawn in case there are any attacks from the black side. They will usually open up with the f6 knight. We then develop our other knight. They then close this position here, creating this nice chain pawn structure right here. The nice thing about this is this bishop is pretty trapped right here. We want to open this up and get our bishop file open. And this is basically how the Semi-Slav structure is. We basically are mirroring each other the whole way through, castling. And then what is the best move for white in the Semi-Slav variation is pushing this e4 pawn forward. Because if they take, we take with a knight, they take with a knight. We are tied with material, but we have a slight advantage because we control the center so well. And we have a lot of attacking options. We have a lot of rook moves. We have opened up the bishop here to attack the queen. And black's bishop is still very constrained behind the lines here, where black's knight can't even move out of here without dying. So this gives a nice advantageous position for white, which is what you want to strive for when you play the Slav defense. In the last variation, we have the Albin Countergambit. When you present the Queen's Gambit, black can just throw in their own gambit themselves where they push the e5 pawn all the way up. Now, this is something that you don't want to use with more skilled players because there is an easy way around it. But the main line that you'll take is d pawn takes e5. They'll push up the pawn, gaining space. You then push up your knight here to attack the pawn. They'll bring out their knight, and we keep developing this way, and to where even in the best of circumstances, as they develop, and this is all the mainline theory, White is still up about a whole piece. And this is if black knows what they're doing. I've never played the counter gambit where we get to this point, I take, and usually black will take there, opening up the queen. They have to take with the queen, and at this point, they are very compromised. It says in the engine they're down 1.3 points, so 1.5 points. You just continue developing as white, and black has a hard time developing, especially with the pawn here, developing its C4, his C4 pawn and getting everything out. That's the advantage for black. So if you like that video, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I come out with a new video every week doing a whole new opening. Next week, we're doing the Topowski opening. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/ZachSlagowski every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Come drop by, play a couple games with me as I learn all of these openings before I post them to YouTube. And with that, we'll see you next week. Yay.